So this is very, very, very long overdue. But it is time to share my numbers on my first house hack. This was my first real estate investment property and also my first home, one that I actually owned myself. Just so many firsts all around that. I had a yard for the first time for my dog. Also, yards are overrated, not gonna lie. Especially in a city, just yard maintenance, it's not for me. And let me say that first purchase was a terrible decision, just kidding. It was a fantastic decision, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I'm honestly impressed looking back at my numbers. I'm like, damn girl, you slayed. But this here is why I freaking love real estate. Because it can completely change your life around and your financial situation, either for better or for worse. Hello and welcome to the Wanderlust Host channel. My name is Olivia Tati and I am a short-term rental specialist and world traveler on a mission to inspire you to invest in real estate and travel the world. My goal is to build a community of like-minded millennials who've spent years stifling their creativity, break free, and take control over their lives. So if you've watched some of my previous videos, you'll know that in 2020, I was in $25,000 worth of credit card debt. And thankfully, just thankfully, had the epiphany in the middle of the year that I just really hated being in credit card debt, and the amount of anxiety that it gave me was awful. And I just wanted to be financially capable and responsible and independent and not have to worry about anything else. I also knew that I didn't want to work at my job forever, at my company forever, or really much longer at all. And so I needed to figure out a way to pay off all of my credit card debt as quickly as I possibly could and make additional income outside of my W-2 job. Ideally something that did not require me to go to the office or to a cubicle every day. And as many of us do in 2020, I came across Bigger Pockets, the Bigger Pockets podcast, and became 100% obsessed with it and never turned it off. For those of you who don't know, the Bigger Pockets podcast is an amazing podcast about real estate investing, and they feature various interviews with other real estate investors, from beginner real estate investors to super seasoned ones, and all of the different strategies that they've used, everything from short-term rentals, long-term rentals, mid-term rentals, commercial deals, flips, wholesaling, anything, all of it. And sometimes they even bring in business owners in other fields as well who've just been successful in life. But usually it's people who have a real estate portfolio or have had a real estate portfolio and have seen success in real estate. Usually to either diversify their portfolio or to reach financial freedom. And on Bigger Pockets, I kept coming across this term called house hacking. House hacking is when you buy a property, live in part of it, and then rent the other parts of it out, either to guests or to tenants. And the cool thing about it here in the US is you have something called an FHA loan where you only have to put 3.5% down on the property if you plan on living in it for at least a year. And it's for small multifamily, so anything that are 4 units or less. And that just makes the barrier to entry super easy. And if you want to know more about house hacking, I made a whole video about how I went from paying rent essentially to now cash flowing and not paying anything in rent or mortgages or anything. So make sure to go back and watch it. I'll put it in the captions, of course. But basically I did just that. I bought a brand new construction duplex, and that thing is my pride and joy in New Orleans. And I'm finally ready to share the numbers on it, see if it was a good deal or a bad deal. I already gave it away, it was a great deal, but I just want to show you the numbers so you can actually see what that looks like, and how you can see how powerful real estate investing can be and how it can completely change your life. Okay, so this is my duplex. It's in New Orleans, Louisiana. It has 2 units, a front one and a back one. And I think it's only actually like 1,600 square feet, maybe just around there. I don't know off the top of my head. So each unit is about 800 square feet, maybe a little more, maybe a little less. The front one I actually use as a full-time rental. It's usually a short-term rental, but sometimes I convert it to a medium-term rental because in the summer it's the slow season and it actually makes more sense to have it as a medium-term rental. And then I usually live in the back unit. However, when I'm traveling, I just rent out that unit as well, usually month to month to a medium-term traveler as well. I purchased this duplex for $399,000. I literally just paid full asking price, didn't negotiate at all. All I negotiated is that it needed to have a yellow door. I literally wrote that in my contract and I stated exactly what yellow. It was Cheerful Yellow by Sherwin-Williams. And I purchased it with an FHA loan, so I put 3.5% down on the property, which was $13,965. The house also appraised for $419,000, which was awesome. Built-in equity right there. And my total closing costs, so those lender fees, title fees, etc., were $13,024, giving me a total cash to close of $26,989. However, because I was a realtor and I spent the year before that getting my real estate license, I was able to roll my commissions into my closing costs. My realtor commission on the property was $8,980. And then I also got a $2,720 seller credit where the builder was paying for all my title fees. I had honestly completely forgotten about that seller credit. I only noticed it when I went back and looked at my closing documents. I was like, oh yeah, I got some credit back. But so when you take this into account, this gave me a total cash to close of $15,289. And then instead of paying those closing costs out of pocket, I took out a 401k loan that covered all of those costs because I just knew that that money sitting in my 401k account was giving me a pretty mediocre return. And that's how I came out of pocket $0. And if you want to watch that video, there's a whole other video that I made that goes into exactly the strategies I use for that. And for that 401k loan, I pay about $100 a month to pay it off, essentially, which is really not bad at all considering what the numbers on this property look like. But now it's been over a year since I've owned this property, and my return on my money has been so much greater than it would have been if it just sat in my 401k. Also, I came out of pocket about $8,000 to pay for furnitures and supplies for the short-term rental unit. Because remember, I was living in the back unit and then I short-term rented out the front unit. The most expensive things that I bought were definitely a brand new washer and dryer for each of the units, actually. But in order to keep costs as low as possible, I actually used some old furniture that I had, or the furniture that I was using in my previous apartment. I put a good portion of it into the short-term rental side. So the couch, the TV stand, I put in my little tiny dining table and another shelf thing, but then still had to purchase things like beds, bed frames, a few rugs, all of the supplies, etc. Once I got the property all set up and running, I also opened up a separate bank account for this property. And if you end up creating an LLC for your property, you should definitely check out Relay Bank. I actually have a link for it in my captions, but that's a really great bank to use that you can use if you have multiple properties so that you can separate everything out. So definitely check that out. And my reasoning for creating a whole separate bank account for this was so that I would not touch that money. Like, I did not give it any access to any of my other accounts. That way I wasn't going to be tempted to transfer any money over. It was just for the property and nothing else. And here's a pro tip that I did not do, but I really wish I had. But start this brand new bank account before you've even closed on the property and before you've even bought any furniture. Do not, and I repeat, do not commingle funds. Keep your personal expenses separate from the property expenses, because that way I can tell you, you are gonna have an absolute headache when it comes to bookkeeping. And that is what I literally stayed up last night until 4 a.m. doing, was going through my Amazon account to figure out what was items that I had gotten for the property versus what were just fun Amazon things I was getting for myself. And trust me, I wanted to cry every step of the way. Okay, but now it's time to really get into the numbers. So I'm looking at the whole 2022 fiscal year. I just threw in fiscal there. So my property went live at the end of January 2022. So this isn't even taking into account what could have been made throughout the early month of January. Or my interest rate on my loan was 2.75%. Thank you for the hookup, Revolution Mortgage and Jeff Johnson. This was when mortgage rates were around the low 3%, but because I had a connection with my lender and I've been able to refer him a lot of business, he was able to hook me up with a lower rate. So it just comes to show how important it is to have those connections with people in the industry. But what does that 2.75% rate and 3.5% down actually transfer to, especially on a $399,000 duplex? My mortgage payment is $2,389 a month, and that includes your principal, your interest, your taxes, and your insurance, including your private mortgage insurance. And those terms are usually lumped into what's called PITI or PITI. And then I also pay $1,660 in flood insurance every year because I live in New Orleans and hurricanes are very prevalent. We're also located below sea level. So that ends up being about $138 a month in flood insurance, bringing my monthly payment to about $2,527. Realistically though, there are many other expenses that come with this house. They do fluctuate a little bit month to month. Things like the electricity bill, the water bill, and then I have things like internet bills, security system bills, and then I have both a maintenance guy and a lawn care guy, which is another little bit of money every month. So really overall it ends up being a little over $3,300 worth of expenses for this house. Now these are expenses for both units, so that's for both sides of the duplex, all together as one. And my whole goal was for the income that was coming in from the short-term rental side to be able to cover all of my basic living expenses, so essentially cover my rent, as well as my utilities like my electricity, my water, my internet. So I could instead use that money that I would have been spending on rent and saving that up to put into something else like building a business or like investing in more real estate. And before, I was spending about $1,800 altogether a month in rent, electricity, internet usage, etc. So now I have this $3,300, it was actually $3,353 bill essentially, or expenses that I'm having to cover every single month. So overall for the year, you're looking at about $40,237 in expenses that I needed to pay. And not gonna lie, this was actually on the higher side than what I had originally calculated out in before I'd actually purchased the property. I was only expecting that it was gonna be about $35,000, and you can actually see that in my original spreadsheet here. But that was okay because I made way more, like way more than I was expecting just from that one side. On that small 2-bed, 1-bath unit, I made a whopping $57,144. And if you go back to that spreadsheet, meaning instead of making that measly $2,400 that it shows there, because I really wasn't expecting to make that much, I thought it was just gonna break even basically, I instead made $16,907. Like I even checked it on my account, you know, the account that I made at the beginning of the year. I was like, damn, I did good. But here's the thing, it's not just the fact that that short-term rental side made $57,000, but on top of that, I saved $1,530 or really around $1,800 a month, because if you take into account utilities that I was paying before. So just saving those $1,530 a month, I was able to put an extra $18,360 into my pocket. So when you take the actual profit that I made from the short-term rental side, which was that $16,907, and then the amount that I saved off of rent, which was the $18,370, that gives me a grand total of $35,257 overall that was generated and saved and put into my pocket in that year of 2022. And that was with $0 out of pocket to actually purchase that short-term rental and about $8,000 in furniture and supplies, which is like a 440% cash-on-cash return, which is stupid. Like, that's crazy. Like, what in this world are you getting a 440% return on? And now, on top of that, I medium-term rent out my side of my duplex whenever I go traveling. And I switch to short-term rental between a medium and a short-term rental depending on the time of the year. For example, in June and July in 2022, I actually didn't cash flow. I only made made like 2,000 and maybe 3,000 with my short-term rental side. For example, during the summer in New Orleans, it's the low season, so it actually doesn't make that much sense to leave it as a short-term rental during that time because it doesn't really cash flow. I actually lost money in 2022 during those 2 months. But overall, a pretty damn good investment if I do say so myself. And I can wholeheartedly say that I have zero regrets. Well, that's just me being completely transparent. I hope that this and me sharing my numbers just helps someone, anyone, even one single person, just helps you take action, take charge, start investing in real estate, be it with a house hack or with a short-term rental, long-term rental, mid-term rental, commercial deal, anything. Literally just do something and don't wait for life to happen to you. Don't forget, if you like this video, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Once again, I always appreciate you. I'm out. Bye.